Okay, so today's workshop is going to be a little bit more technical than the one we did last year. We're focusing on artist portfolios, specifically digital ones. So today's presentation is about your art, your story, and design strategies for artists. So in this workshop, participants will learn essential design strategies for building a compelling art portfolio online that not only showcases your work, but also weaves a cohesive visual narrative. So a sort of art of storytelling about your practice. We'll also explore various digital tools and applications available to help you effectively organize and present your work, while touching on photography tips and some graphic design tips to enhance the quality of your visuals. From gaining exposure on social media to writing pitches for residencies, exhibitions, and more, this workshop will equip you with the skills and insights needed to connect with a wider audience and advance your artistic endeavors, whatever they may be. So everyone is familiar with my art background, but I also do have a graphic design background. All artists have to work part-time to help sustain their careers, and actually graphic design was something that helped sustain me in my early career, just starting off. And so these are tips that I'm sharing with you that I've learned along the way that I did not learn in art university. So there is a lot of information here, but I will be happy to answer all the questions at the end of this presentation. So just to give you an overview of what we'll be covering today, we'll start off with what an art portfolio is and why it's useful. We'll then go into getting you started. If you're starting from scratch, you're at the right place. If you want to just improve your process, you're also in the right place. I will take you through the steps I do to create images for my portfolio and my website. We'll then go into designing to pitch your art, which is essential for getting exhibitions, receiving a table at an arts market, getting a residency, and much more. We'll then go over some tools, a sort of overview of things that we went through in the presentation, plus some helpful scenarios to help improve as you develop your career. And we'll end off with an overview of different digital platforms and what they mean for audiences. I will also do a sort of demo at the end as well of how you can instantly have a sort of website right off the bat once you've created your art portfolio. And we'll end off with a Q&A, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions to be answered. Oh, I should start timing myself so I can keep track of time. Okay. So what is an art portfolio? An art portfolio is essentially a lookbook, which documents artists' most prominent works and experiences. So the image you see on the right side is what this used to look like, but we're going to make it virtual. So I actually entered OCAD in 2006, and I had to carry this large portfolio to the university to show all my drawings, all my paintings. It was quite an ordeal to take public transportation. But yeah, that's how it used to be done. But today it's all digital, so everything can be done in slide format. So typically, the portfolio describes an artist's creative vision. This is usually in the form of an artist statement, and the artist's accomplishments. This is in the form of an artist biography. It is a curated showcase of the most relevant works. So even if it was a physical portfolio, you would be sort of curating a selection of your works. We're doing the same thing, but virtually. It can focus on a specific project or technique that you've created, a collection of works, or with time, an overall body of works. It may visually describe your creative process. where sometimes process is a very important part to your practice. You can use a portfolio to describe that. Often it is followed by an artist's curriculum vitae, an art CV, and an art portfolio can also take form as a website or even extend into social media like Instagram, which is something we'll touch on at the end of the presentation. So why would an art portfolio be useful? How can it help you develop your career? So an art portfolio is essentially your pitch deck. So say you wanted to promote your business idea, it's essentially the same thing. You want to promote your art to audiences that physically can't reach you or see your work. So this slide presentation that you're going to create essentially will stand in for you in a space where you can't physically be to pitch your work to curators, to publicists and critics. It also brings the audience to you who can't physically be in your studio space. An art portfolio can be tailored and updated to follow application guidelines. So as I mentioned, back in 2006, me applying to OCAD, I had to show them my portfolio. I had to select certain images and techniques for them to review me equally with other artists. So art universities will often have guidelines of what they need to be presented in an art portfolio. Competitions might have different guidelines, as well as artist residencies and grants and project proposals for exhibitions. They all might have different guidelines. But if you have your slide deck sort of ready, it's really easy to update it and make the necessary adjustments according to those calls. An online portfolio can attract audiences beyond your home base. So similarly, having a page on a website or even on Instagram can lead to exciting new opportunities because new audiences can see your work. And it can also help curators and publicists, even critics, write about your work. So if your work is visible online, say through a website, they can easily gather information about your work and write a more detailed article about, say, an exhibition you had in the city. Taking the time to reflect and document and write about your art can also motivate your creative journey, because as you start documenting your work and you keep building your portfolio, you'll realize that you're accomplishing quite a lot as you progress as an artist. So getting started, there are essentially three things that create your art portfolio. You need your artworks to start everything, and then you have your artist statement and your artist biography and CV. And these three things create a great art portfolio. So just a brief review of what an artist statement is. There is a workshop from last year, which everyone can still reference, I believe. So I'm just touching on those details here today. An artist statement is a short piece of writing of 1 to 3 paragraphs describing your artistic practice. Typically, this is written in first person, so using words like I, me, and it describes your inspirations, the concepts, techniques, and materials that you use behind your creative work. So if you're inspired by a book, if you're inspired by specific techniques and materials, how those kind of play in your works that you'll be presenting in your portfolio. It can also be about a specific work or a group of works, or with time, an overall body of work. So say you want to focus your portfolio on just drawings, it could be a statement on your drawing practice. And the artist biography, again, just touching on what this is. An artist biography is a summary about you, the work you produce, and your educational and your professional accomplishments to date. So you do not have to have an arts background or have worked as an artist all your life to write an artist biography. If you are a scientist now experimenting with painting, you can write an artist biography and say you're a scientist now experimenting with acrylic painting. So it's very flexible and open to your life story. An artist bio is often written in third person and usually is just a few lines to a paragraph in length. An art CV is very much like a career curriculum vitae, but it includes any of your artistic career achievements, such as if you participated in artist residencies, if you've received any awards, any grants that you may have received, or any scholarships, collections that might show your artwork, any solo exhibitions that you may have participated in, any group exhibitions you may have participated in, art fairs that you have shown your work, and press clippings. So if there was an article about your work online, you can also include that in your art CV. And in this presentation, I've showed a link to Canada Council. I'll open that up. So here everyone can reference online on Canada Council's website for the arts of how to prepare your art CV or resume. And this is a great reference to get started. Also because if you want to apply for art funding through Canada Arts Council, it's great to create your CV in a way that is accepted also by their platform. So if you scroll down on this page, you'll also be able to download a sample. So there's an optional CV template document here and also a sample arts and cultural CV. So if I click that, right away you can see an example of what an art CV would look like. It's very similar to any traditional CV with a twist of focusing on creative and artistic accomplishments. So in this example, you can even see that from March to June 2022, this artist included self-taught lino cutting techniques by watching YouTube videos, which is very much acceptable. So if you're a self-taught artist, you can still fill out this art CV. Go back to my slides. Documenting art. So I don't have much time to actually go over how to specifically document art, but I do want to touch on the essentials, which can help create effective images for your portfolio. So documenting art, you do need a good camera. I included an image of the Canon camera that I use. If you have one, if you're able to borrow a professional camera, I do recommend using one. It does improve the quality of your images. But if you're just starting out and you have a smartphone with a very good camera attached to it, use what you have. You can always grow into newer technology as you progress in your career, which is something that I've also done. I started small and then continue to buy equipment that helps document my artwork more effectively. So you need a camera, you need a tripod, because if you try taking a photograph with just your hands, those will be a few shaky photographs. Especially for details, you do need the camera to be very still. So if you're going to be using your phone to take photographs, still use a tripod, place it on a table or a stable surface to take your photographs. I've also included a scanner on this list with an asterisk. So scanners are great if you're working on paper, say you're drawing on paper with something like markers or pencils, perhaps not graphite because that would be a little bit messy on the scanner. But for anything that's printed on a paper, watercolor on paper can potentially work. So works on paper do typically scan well with the scanner. For everything else, I recommend using a camera to get those textural details and avoid the harsh light on artwork. a measuring tape, and a ruler. So when you're going to document your artworks, keep these on hand, and they'll be the reason why coming. Have a level on hand to make sure your artworks will be straight and not on an angle when you're documenting them. Have a notepad and pencil on hand, and try to shoot with natural soft light. So a cloudy day usually works best. And you'll also need your computer to edit the photographs after. So whether that be, if you're taking the photographs directly on your phone, you can say that's your computer, or if you have a tablet, or if you have a laptop, all these things work. So photographing your art. So great photographs documenting your artwork will equal a great art portfolio. So the better your photographs are, the clearer they are, the better you're going to attract your viewers and the more they're going to want to see of your work. So for flat 2D works, I suggest hanging your work on a neutral wall, white or gray, and use a level to make sure it's straight when you're about to take that photograph. So there's an image on the top right corner, kind of giving you an example of an artwork on a wall. It's not on an angle, laying against a table, it is flat against a wall. And it also shows the position of the camera, which is directly in the middle of the artwork, not also on an angle or too high, because that would cause distortion of the image. And I'm not going to go into too much technical detail because I did leave the link on the bottom of this slide of where you can read more. But this is something I see quite often from students and when during exhibitions, that artists will often lean their work on a wall and take the photograph on an angle, so we don't get a clear vision of the artwork. It's not straight on. So I really want to emphasize that having the wall flat on the wall and leveling the eye level of the camera to look straight at the artwork is really key to getting a good photograph. For 3D works, consider creating your own light box for that neutral white background and space. So on the bottom, you'll see a do-it-yourself light box that if you search online, you'll find a million tutorials on how to do this yourself. Or if you have the funds, you can also purchase a light box online with Amazon. But it's always fun to create your own, especially if you need to create a light box that's larger in scale and also a little bit more flexible to put it away in your space. So all you really need is a white cardstock sheet of paper. You can tape it against the wall and just have it kind of domed down. And that's really essentially the starting point to create a neutral background for a 3D artwork. So again, just repeating, document your artwork using a professional camera when you can. And an overcast day works well for that neutral, soft light. A harsh sunny day can cause like harsh shadows and also kind of draw attention to different parts of your artwork in a way that wouldn't be neutral and even for the viewer to see. And just again, scanner works well for small works on paper. A smartphone is actually really great if you're documenting behind the scenes in your studio. So for example, taking this do-it-yourself lightbox example image, that could have been photographed with a phone, and it's a great behind the scenes that you can post on social. When documenting your any of your works, use a high resolution. So you have to look into your settings in your camera. They do have to be at least 300 dots per inch. So this is ideal for when you're printing your photographs, if you ever need to print your photographs. But also this allows your photographs to have the most detail possible. And when documenting your artworks, take a photograph of the entire full artwork, plus a close-up detail of any fine details of your drawings, your paintings. These two views are really great for your portfolio, and I'll show examples of this coming up. So that link in this slide does give you more of a detailed background on how to photograph your art. So I do recommend checking that website out. So as I mentioned, you should have your ruler or measuring tape on hand when you're about to document your artwork. And this is so you can measure your artwork as you're documenting it and take notes. So here you can see the artwork description is the title. So you kind of write down the title. You also write down the artistic medium. So in my case, this artwork that I'm about to document is oil paint and photo transfer on emergency blanket. You then write the dimensions, and standard practice is the height with width, and if it's a 3D object, the depth. So in my case, it is 14 centimeters by 9 centimeters. I'm also going to take note of the year it was produced. So this painting was produced in 2022. And then the artist's name. So in my case, it's Jaspal Birdi. But if this was an artwork that I co-produced with another artist, I would also include their name. And then I often use a software such as Excel or Numbers or Google Sheets to keep track of these descriptions. That way, if I lose my notebook, I still have the record of all this information neatly in a Excel file. So just want to take note that this photograph that you see was taken with my iPhone. And the next one you're about to see was taken with a Canon. So just going to go back and forth. There is a significant difference in color. One is more sharp and graphic. The other one is more softer, but also much more close to the actual colors in the artwork. So these are the difference. So catching color is a lot more ideal with a professional camera. So setting up your scene correctly equals less edits afterwards. So in this case, my artwork is straight on the wall, my camera is lined up, and I'm going to adjust my settings of the camera and point and shoot. So take multiple shots when you have it all set up, because there might be a shot that ends up a little bit blurry, but another one is sharp. And this happens to me. So I take about 5 images of one particular artwork, and definitely one of those 5 is going to be the sharpest. Because I did this step, edits should be minimal to avoid exaggerating or changing the appearance of the actual artwork. So with the example you see on the right, all I did was increase the exposure level. So that's all that's happening in this photograph to represent that artwork. I'm not enhancing the colors in any way because that would distort the actual colors from the actual artwork in person. So the more you play with your camera, the less edits you should make using a software on, say, your tablet. There's a lot of editing software available on your tablets or even on your computer. But also, if you want or have the means, there are optional softwares like Photoshop and Lightroom. If you want to get a little bit more technical with your editing, but you can really do a lot with the basics that you have on your computer software. So again, just want to repeat that 300 dpi is a great resolution to keep in mind, especially if you need to print your images, or say your artwork is going to be in the press, they would need 300 dpi. 72 to 120 dpi is perfect for the web. So that was a lot of information on photographing, but please go visit that website I indicated earlier for step-by-step of how to document your art. Design your pitch to pitch your art. So the slides are the most essential form of an art portfolio. So there seems to be audio coming in. So slides are the most essential form of an art portfolio. So before even thinking about a website, really focus on your slides. So as I mentioned before, schools, residencies, competitions, exhibition proposals, grants, and more often request artists to submit slides of their work than anything else. And use any software that you're most comfortable with to create your slides. If you're comfortable with using Word or Pages or Doc, you're more than welcome to use that. I would suggest using PowerPoint, Keynote, or Slides on Google. I typically use Keynote. This presentation today is on Keynote because I have a Mac. Keep your pages clean with the focus on your art. And for this, I mean, focus on one artwork per slide. Often juries for shows see your slides on small screens. It could be like a tablet or even on their phone. So help them see more detail by only showing one artwork at a time. Choose an easy to read font. Avoid any decorative fonts which may distract from the image of the artwork itself. And this will be for your artwork descriptions. By using a slide program like PowerPoint, Keynote, or Slides, you can rearrange your slides, order them to tell your story the most effective way possible, and also delete slides if you need to for a specific call. And here's just a tip: group similar styles or approaches or concepts together. So if you have a series of drawings, you can do the drawings first, a series of paintings, you can do the paintings next, or video. Really play around with what really tells the best story for you. And there's a little tip on the side saying your slides can be your web portfolio too. So I will share how to get to that step after you've created your slides. So here's just an example. This is an example from my portfolio. This is just the cover. I kept it very simple, but you can also include an image. Oftentimes when you're submitting for, say, an exhibition call, they limit your slides to, say, 4 to 5 images, so you won't even get a chance to include a cover. So this is why I kept mine clean and simple, but you're open to be more creative than me with this one. My first page in my portfolio is the artist statement and the biography. So here you'll see the artist statement on top, 2 paragraphs about my artwork, followed by my biography, which lists all my accomplishments. On the left-hand side, you'll see I included a doodle of my concept and thought process behind my work, which is something I shared last year. But you're more than welcome just to include a photograph of yourself if that is comfortable for you as well. So for me, I preferred including the doodle, but it could also be a portrait of me as well. So as I mentioned before, a portfolio can share the process behind your art. So this really depends if process is really important to you and important for your audience to understand. And for me, I realized through studio visits that actually sharing my process was very important to engaging the audience that I had. So here I actually made a whole project on how to document my process during our artist residency. So in this first slide, you'll see that I've included the original photograph in my process on the left-hand side. I also labeled what image means what. So I've labeled at the bottom left photograph of trees captured using an iPhone at 1547. This photograph with no alterations was twice submitted to print with a modified laser printer. On the right, 2 prints produced by the laser printer, 2 different results. So this is sort of expanding on my artist statement at the beginning, giving details with visuals about my process. You'll also find that the label information that I recorded while photographing my works is also indicated on my left-hand side. Small note, also on this slide, I've labeled that this artwork has already been collected. This might be information useful for a curator to know if in case they needed to find where the artwork is for a particular show. Continuing my process, I have 2 photographs of the same installation. So after scanning one print I've written, it is reprinted in pieces on a larger scale. So just a short description of what the images are. Again, including the label information at the bottom. So the title of this work is going to be 15H47M, and this is the process. And it's installation of color laser prints on A3 paper on floor in front of a window. And continuing the process, here I've actually included photographs taken with my smartphone. This is behind the scenes, but it also illustrates the process that's involved with creating my work. So I have on the left me showing that gesso is applied to the prints before placing it down on the canvas. And then on the right, how I remove the paper with my hands with water, just leaving the toner absorbed onto the canvas. And the last image in this process is the final artwork. So you'll see a clear, large image of the artwork installed in space, along with its label information on the side. And for this particular image, it was done with a professional camera. I used my Canon, had it on a tripod, and lined it up with the artwork. Yeah, so this image was taken within a gallery space, so the lighting was good. But in case this were in a space with more windows, I would have picked a more cloudy day to take this photograph. And just another example and approach, this is a view of a gallery that has a solo exhibition. This was my solo exhibition in New York. So in this slide, I decided to indicate the gallery, the location of this, where this image was taken, the title of the solo exhibition, Between Standing and Moving, the month that it was on show, and in this case, the photograph was taken by a photographer. His name was Shark Sinasak. So giving image credit if it wasn't me that took the photograph, which is perfectly fine to have someone else take your photos for you. It's great to reference that someone else took the photograph if that is the case. So in this case, I've also decided to go into individual artworks. So here I have an image of the artwork 16H44M, oil paint and photo transfer on canvas. It is 136 by 100 centimeters, and the artwork is by me, Jaspal Birdi, 2024. And also I've indicated that it's been acquired, so if someone needed to include it in an exhibition, they know where to go. So on this slide, I have the overall full image of the artwork along with a close-up detail. Just another example. And here you can see the repetition. I'm using the same format, so it's very clear on the eyes and easy to see. You're also more than welcome to center images, have the text on the bottom, wherever your flow is, but you notice that I'm using plain text, just clear, a sans serif font, just for minimal label information, and the main focus is the image. So now I'm just going to go into a few web examples. So let's see, I'll go with Evan Collis. As Evans loads, I'm just going to quickly share my website. So Once you create those slides, they actually really do help you create the layout for your website moving forward. I'm not going to get too much detail of how to create a website like this today, but I just wanted to show that I had that process laid out in my slides, which made it really easy to create my page on the website. So I used basically the same layout. I've added more photographs, same text, same images, just more images because I have space for that on my website. But that portfolio really laid out my storyboard for my website. Okay, so in this website example, I wanted to show Evan Collis, who was a peer of mine in university. He is currently focusing on film and comics. So I just wanted to share another example of how to document your work if, say, you're working with zines. Here he's documented his zine, the cover, a few pages of his zine, just using his camera set up on a tripod, potentially just above, and with his hand opening the book. So it's very clear, very easy to see, and he has his description of what he's photographing on top. He's also had a 3D model that he created, and you can see here he's created his own light box. You can see that in white neutral background. And he's done a front photograph, detailed photograph, the different angles of the box. So it really creates this descriptive image of what the artwork is. And just another example, he has some animations of his works. So you can see his different reels. If you work in film, this is a potential way of showcasing your animations online. So he's used Vimeo, and again has that clear description of what that video is about at the bottom. He also included his community art. You can see images of engagement, and these are all examples of things you can include in your portfolio. So if you're mostly engaged in community art, it's really great to show everything that you've achieved out in the world. I'll give another example. Here we have Jake Kimball. So I'm sharing a few artists whose work I really enjoy and admire. This is Jake Kimball. He is a visual artist and photographer. And I just wanted to highlight how he used this kind of more decorative text for his name, but it's actually really in line with his work. I believe it's Grow Up. So he's using this kind of text in his work, so it ties in visually with his aesthetic that he creates these artworks with this interesting text, and he kind of plays with that. I'll do another example. Nico Williams. Nico Williams is the recent recipient of the Sobey Art Prize, and well-deserved. Really amazing work that I saw at Art Toronto this year. And it's really great to see examples of artworks by artists that you admire online as well, to give you some ideas. So here you see like the product photography of his artwork in a neutral white space, exhibition views, detailed views, and so on. Just give another example. So here we have Caroline Monet. So Caroline Monet is working in both art and film. So we'll go to her art. So you can see different shots of her works in exhibitions. And you can also see her small detailed texts about the shows, some detailed shots of the artworks, and so on. Something I wanted to highlight from Caroline's website is if you go to the About, you see her artist bio, where she studied, her photograph, but also you can see an example of our art CV also on her website. So hers is very long. Everyone starts off very short. So don't feel like if yours is just a few lines long, that's how everyone starts out. So this is just an example. So your portfolio will grow over the years. So these were just a few examples of individuals that have been developing their work over the years. So their images are quite extensive and there's a lot of them, but everyone started off with nothing and built up afterwards. So just to repeat the tools, use softwares like Word, Pages, Google Docs to write your statements, biography, and curriculum vitae. And I've recommended to use applications like Grammarly to help edit any text, or if you have a friend to edit your text, because you don't want those mistakes being seen in your portfolio, especially when there's a jury reading them, a curator reading them, and so on and so forth. Just having those refined details edited is always a great thing to show that you're very serious about your application and the work that you do. Use softwares like Excel, Numbers, and Google Sheets to keep track of your artwork descriptions. Again, if in case you lost your notes while you were documenting your art and making all those measurements, you don't lose all your information because you do have it saved online. Try to save and keep copies of your texts and any working drafts into folders. So you can see here on the right-hand side, I have a folder for my artist statements. If I make any adjustments, I do have like multiple versions of it so I can go back and revisit if there was a change I made, but I actually want to go back to. I have a folder for my artist bio, same idea. I have a folder for my art CV, and I have a folder for my photographs of my paintings, any photographs for, say, sculptures, any photographs for any drawings. I sort of just group them together according to their medium. You can find your own organizational system, what works best for you. This is just an idea. And use any software, again, that you're most comfortable with to create your slides. I recommend using PowerPoint and Keynote. And the reason being, I'm going to show you with the slide that I'm showing right now. This is Keynote that I'm using. If I change my view into, say, light table, I get like a full overview of what I'm working with. And say I wanted to rearrange certain slides because it would read better, it's really easy for me to drag and move a slide within this kind of slide program. With Word or like a doc program, this becomes a lot harder to do. So some helpful scenarios that can help with developing and also improving your portfolio. Studio visits. So ask a friend. This can be in person or virtual. Ask them to take a look at your portfolio, your slides that you've created before they do your studio visit, and have them take notes of their first impressions. So whether what they understood from it, if your text read clearly, and things like that. They can help you edit your texts even. During your studio visit, tell them about your work. So actually do that in person, kind of, even if it's virtually, describe your artworks, walk them through your process, and really just get into details about how you're working. At the end of it, ask them Did my slides do a good job describing my artistic practice? Is there something that looked different in person? Did it look better in person? Did it not match up? This will help you improve. So what can I improve in my slides? Another helpful scenario is that if your work is in an exhibition, make sure to document it. So it's a great opportunity to photograph your work in a different space. These can also help visualize your artwork within a space. So in this example here, you can see three of my artworks in the gallery wall. This kind of gives a sense of scale, whereas if it's just close up, you don't really have an understanding of how big or how small the artwork is. Another helpful scenario is artist residencies. Again, take advantage of those studio visits, similar to those studio visits with your friends. But oftentimes, artist residencies hire a photographer to document your artwork in exhibitions, which really is something you can use in your portfolio. So the more professional your photographs get, the better your portfolio will look. So to give you an idea of why I emphasize the slides as your starting point for your portfolio, is that it really is essential. It is the most formal way of presenting your art, almost as formal as having a solo exhibition, except it's on a screen. You can also print your slides and mail them if that's something that's asked for an application, but this is really essential for juries to see, for curators to see, gallery directors to see. So say you want to have a gallery represent your work, they would want to see your portfolio. Professors, if you're trying to get into a university for your undergraduate or master's program, they will want to see your portfolio. And the purpose of these slides is essentially they're either emailed to a person of interest, they can be uploaded into open calls for review. So you say you're applying for a group exhibition with a theme of, say, fire, and you have 5 photographs on the idea of fire. So you would upload your slides, which document your artworks for this exhibition. You can also use your slides as a stand-in for your website, which is something I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation. The website actually is optional. It is very complicated, I'm not going to lie, to create a website. It is pretty simple if you kind of do it step by step and read a lot of tutorials or watch a lot of YouTube videos, you can do it. But if you want something to get off the ground, say tomorrow after you create your slides, I will show you how to do that today. But the audience for your website is both formal and creative. So if you do take that next step of creating your own website, you can get really creative with it. But if you just want something to be there online, so you have something that individuals that are interested in learning more about your art online, you can take the formal approach of having your slide portfolio online. So this is for your general public, curious individuals who may have seen your slides, say in a juried call, or maybe they saw one work in person in an exhibition and they're curious to see more. They might want to visit your website. So the purpose of the website is really to show more artworks, as slides are often limited, as I kind of showed with that example of my process. You can really put more images on your website. There is no limit there. You can potentially sell artwork online through the website. If the website has that feature, you can actually have someone just buy right away online. You can also share and promote news for, say, upcoming shows, upcoming markets, upcoming workshops, things like that. It's a great place to kind of centralize your activity. Social media is also something that's optional, but I would say pretty essential, because you're kind of missing out on reaching a large general public by not being on, say, Instagram. I would say Instagram is probably the most important one for artists to be on. One, because a lot of galleries, if they're interested in representing you, they will often go to your Instagram to see what are you like as a person? What do you do behind the scenes? What does your studio look like? This is where curious individuals and the general public will go to learn about you as a person. So they may have seen your slides in a submission and kind of want to be curious about other works that you might have. They might be curious about what you're working on now for a future exhibition. And this is really the space where you can be creative. So if you don't have an Instagram account, I would recommend you open up one today. They're not paying me to promote them, but I really do recommend being on there. So the purpose of social media, like Instagram, is really to share the behind the scenes, show your artworks, reach new audiences, and really express your voice. You can become really creative with this. You don't have to be formal. You can also share your inspiration, your process, and also share and promote your news. So just to give you an example of how I use Instagram, you should use Instagram the way you want to. I'm not so frequently active on it, but that's because that fits my lifestyle. But you can see that I sometimes show images of my artwork. I sometimes share images of individuals visiting, say, an art fair. I'll show images of my art in exhibitions. I'll sometimes share personal images of myself to kind of give the audience an understanding of who I am. I'll also create a few reels just to kind of show behind the scenes of what my studio practice looks like. This kind of brings the audience in on how I work. So this is something I would have shot with my smartphone and then just edited together using the Instagram software to create that video. So a really simple way to get engaged with your public right away is just to open up an Instagram account. So I only have a few minutes left, but really want to just kind of touch on that aspect of creating your own website. Again, start small and build up. So really focus on creating those good slides, documenting your artwork correctly, and just really honing in on those slides, because that is essentially the most important part to getting opportunities to show and be invited to residencies and things like that. But if you're really interested in creating your own website, just to kind of introduce you to the difference of domain versus hosting. So a domain is the name of your website, which becomes its address. So for example, google.com, that is a domain. Hosting is a place where your website file would live. So it's kind of like being on land, but it's in a virtual space. You can keep your domain name when you decide to move to a different hosting platform, but you can't do the vice versa. It just doesn't work that way. So just to give you a few web platforms, when I'm speaking about hosting, WordPress would be an example of a place where your website can live. WordPress is great if you work more in a blog format. The example I gave of Evan Collis's website is done on WordPress. Squarespace is another platform for hosting your website, which also has capabilities for selling your artwork if that's something that interests you. It's also a very popular choice among artists. The examples I gave for Jake Kimball, and yes, I believe his is on Squarespace. There's also Wix, which is another popular website used by many artists for showing off their portfolio. I do think there are plugins for selling your artwork on that as well, But if you're looking for a more simple approach, I believe Squarespace is your best option for something like that. Adobe Portfolio is something that I use, and that is because I actually do pay to use the Adobe software. So that's like Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator, all those things. And because I pay for that software, they do actually offer me web hosting space. And they do have that software to create that website. So I'm actually using Adobe Art Portfolio to create my website. I do think it's one of the easiest ones to use. So if you're a person that does have Adobe programs, potentially this is an easy option for you to create your website on. Other options are Cargo, used to be known as Cargo Collective. They have really great, neat designs. A little bit complicated to use, but there are a lot of videos and tutorials of how to get started on that. There's also GoDaddy, which is one where you would buy your domain name on. It's where I bought my jaspalbirdi.com on. But also, you can also create your website through GoDaddy as well. You can also purchase your domain name through other websites like WordPress, Squarespace, and Wix. They do offer that service, but you can do your research of what price points fit your budget. For me personally, when I did buy my domain many years ago, GoDaddy was the best option for me. So that is sort of websites in the least complicated way I can describe them. But I really wanted you to still have the opportunity to create a website if you don't want to get too complicated with it, but sort of get started to have your presence on the web. So as long as you create your slides, you can have your portfolio online. So here I'm providing you with a link to a website called canva.com. So I'm just going to do a little demo. So Canva is actually a really great website which you can use for free with your Google account. It's actually really great if you want to design flyers, any kind of images for your social media, things like that. But you can also create your landing page for free as well. There are premium options, but if you want to do things for free, there are options for that as well. So here I've just clicked on that link that opened up Create My Own Landing Page. And they have a few templates that you can use for the get-go. So I'm just going to select one. And basically, this would be a web page that you can then become your website. So all I would have to do is like edit the text here. I can change up the font. So let's just write my name. Say I wanted to change the text, I can change the font. I'm not going to go into too much detail of editing all these things, but give you sort of an idea. Let me go to my upload, see if I have any images I can use. Let's use this squiggle line. Okay, pretend that is my artwork. And after playing around with all these aesthetics, I can then link my portfolio that I've created. So I'm going to update this text to say art portfolio. Again, I can also change the fonts. I can delete sections I don't need. Maybe I can create a section that says news and just type in the news I have. So just by seeing this font, I'm going to say it's not the easiest to read, so I'm going to just go ahead and change it to something a little bit more easier to read. Okay, it's not the best looking right now. I would want to spend a lot more time on beautifying this page, but I just wanted to show how to upload your slides so that they could be online. So here I've created the text art portfolio, and what you can do is once your slides are complete, you can upload them onto your Google Drive. So here for today's presentation, I've uploaded a part of the slides onto my drive. And what I would want to do is click these three dots on the right-hand side and click share. So I'm going to click, instead of the first option, I'm going to get the link. And if you look at the bottom, it says general access restricted. What I want to do is change that to anyone with the link. So from here, I'm going to copy link. And I'm going to go back to my Canva template. I'm going to highlight art portfolio, and then there's a little icon that pops up that says link. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to paste that link that I just copied from my Google Drive. And that's it. I'm going to click done. And done. So if this is all beautiful, I'm really happy with it. I can even go ahead to, I'm going to delete Twitter. I don't need that. I'm going to delete Facebook. I don't need that. Maybe I want to actually link my Instagram as well. So let me go to my Instagram page. I'm going to also copy that link. Go back to my Canva. I'm going to select that Instagram logo and click those three dots to see if there's a link here. Yes, there is. There's a link. I'm going to paste that Instagram link right into that image. So I've put my link in. I'm going to click done. And now that box should also link to my Instagram account. So once this is all beautiful and ready to go, I'm going to say publish website. And here you can say that it automatically resizes on the mobile, which is perfect. Makes things easy for you as well. And I'm going to edit this to say, okay, it says website URL. So here you can see I've put my URL as test November 21-24, but it's also going to include my Canva site because this is all for free, which is fine. I'm okay with that. And I can also include an extra page link, or I can also say get new domain, and it would also kind of prompt you to buy your own domain if you wanted to. But I'm actually very okay with having a free website. I just want to get my portfolio online. So I'm going to use this, this free domain that it provided. I'm just going to write Jaspal. There we go. And I'm going to say publish website. So my website is live. So if I were to copy this link and send it to you, you would be able to go onto this page. I'm just going to click view website, and you can see the design that I left unfinished is over there with my name on it. Art portfolio, when I click it now, it's going to lead to my slides. So anyone can start seeing If this were my art portfolio, they can start seeing my images right away instead of going through that process of creating a website. And also, if they were to click the Instagram logo, they would be linked to my Instagram account. So this could be something that I can share. I can share this link in an email. I can share this link on my Instagram just above so people can visit and see my art portfolio. And they can also visit to see news for an upcoming show. So I'm going to stop here and start answering questions because I did cover a lot. So if there are any questions.
It's your time now. Crowd, our Yukon crowd, if you have any questions, we still have a few minutes to answer them. Thank you so much, Jaspal. It was very interesting.
Yep, there's a lot of information when it comes to creating websites, but as long as the slides for our portfolio have a good start, everything else can start to be built up from there.
I think, Jane, you have a question?
Yeah. Are we still recorded? Is the recording still on?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. First question is, we get a copy of this recording, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'll want to go over I can read it. Secondly, I made a Facebook page. Is Facebook completely out of date now, or
it really depends on the audience you want to reach. There's a lot of people on Facebook, especially if you want to, say, sell to more of your following. If you do have a large following on Facebook, Facebook can really work for you. From my personal experience, when speaking with galleries and other curators, they really do look at Instagram.
Okay, so but you can I might go with both. So
yes, so
yeah,
you can
I
do
know
both.
a lot of artists that I observe, they have both. And so the question is, for applying to things like galleries and stuff, it's possible if you have your slide presentation and you have maybe Instagram and Facebook, is it possible to not have a website?
Yes. So as I presented at the end of this presentation, that you can actually just use your slides as your website.
Yeah. But it would be advisable to use Canva and put your slides online, because they prefer that. They prefer that than having me email them, like email the PowerPoint type thing.
Yes. So for example, if a gallery were to discover you on Instagram and they want to learn more, they might click the link on your Instagram account to see your website. So to take advantage of that section of having your link as a website, you can make that link lead to your portfolio. And so that gallery can see your portfolio online. They do like to be discreet. That's why those links are great to have, so they can get to know your work. And also, I just showed you a very quick example of just writing news, but you can also write your contact information. So if you're best reached by email, you can write your email in there so they can email you directly, and things like that.
Okay, so yeah, so the so having your portfolio online is advisable for galleries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Also, if you go to gallery openings, that's the best way to also meet gallerists and curators. Oftentimes, if they have a great connection with you, they'll ask you for your Instagram handle, because they will go to your Instagram, try to learn more about you, and also look at your portfolio that way.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. It was a good presentation.
I have a question for Garnet. Having a portfolio on Instagram, is it helpful for when artists are applying for grants?
So for grants, it's actually quite different. Like you really need that formal slide portfolio for grants. And Canada Council is one of them. So I gave the link of how to create your art CV because that's something you do need to create your portal on Canada Council. But then when you're applying for a specific grant, you do have to submit images of your artwork, which becomes your portfolio in a way. So the better your images are, the better chances the jury can understand your artwork.
But the jury could also go, like, if they're curious to go online and see.
They could. The world works in mysterious ways. So all my opportunities, like some of them are some that like I applied for a residency, I submitted my portfolio, they accepted me, I showed with them, Instagram did its thing, a curator in Vancouver saw my works that I did in Italy, and they invited me to capture a few years ago. So Instagram does work to give you these opportunities. And if there's a link to your portfolio to see other works, curators can potentially see what can work in a show that they're thinking of that belongs to you.
Is there other questions, group? There's a question from Sam.
Okay, so I create all my stuff digitally, like with a computer, and then so far I print it on canvas and I put it in a couple of small group shows. And so if I were creating a portfolio, the best detail I could give would be straight digital, like straight out of my computer, versus is there, what would you suggest? Or would I get it, photos of it hanging on a wall to give it some kind of context?
I think it really depends on the context that you're trying to portray to your viewer that's viewing your portfolio. So one, the actual image, digital image, would be a great thing to include in your portfolio because that would be the sharpest and the clearest. But if your intention is that digital work is a physical printed work, then documenting that artwork on a gallery wall in its canvas form is also a good image to include in addition to your digital image.
Okay, so probably both in that case.
Yeah, so it's very similar to sort of that process that I showed of how I had this digital photograph, but how that transformed into a physical work. Right. So you would be doing something very similar in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
And also for anyone working with like 3D renderings, just photographing that 3D rendering in your virtual space, those are really great images to include in your portfolio as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I believe everyone will see with the recording the links that I shared so they can visit those websites for more information, especially on photographing. There's a lot of details involved with photographing artwork, so it's really much easier to just read that website and take those notes with you as you photograph.
I was surprised to see that we can add in our CV. Yeah, you were showing we can add if we took a class on YouTube or.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of artists are self-taught, so just especially for someone like Canada Council, like how did you learn? you even though you're self-taught, where did you learn from? So it could have been your grandmother. Your grandmother taught you knitting throughout your course of your childhood, and that's where you received your learning from. So write that so we can understand where your skills come from.
There's also, I was meeting lately with a group of artists from Montreal, and they're using they made their website using a thing called Artist Run website. Apparently, it was developed by artists from Vancouver, and it works
nice.
super well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Easy to use, and you can add your as much text as you want. And yeah, Artist Run website.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. I'll also look into it.
Mm-hmm. Is there other questions? We still have Jaspal for a few minutes.
I can see someone typing, so I hope there might be a question coming.
Yeah. And also, if Lynn and Diane, I know your mic is not working, but you can text me and I will give your question to Jaspal if you have questions.
So actually, I'll just add, documenting your works, as I showed my Instagram as an example, you automatically have images for your social media, and it becomes really easy then to fill in images as you go, working in your studio with your phone.
And I can add, so Jaspal, you mentioned the workshop that you provided for us earlier this year when you were talking about writing statements and bios. And we do have a recording of that still available. It's on the FOIPAC website. So it's foypac.ca under resources. And there's also a recording there of an online workshop that Eric Pinkerton gave about photographing your work. So a lot of the principles that you mentioned earlier, Jaspal, are included there.
Great.
Cool.
I still see typing, but I'm not seeing anything coming. Kathy, do you? Oh, there we go. It was more of a comment than a question. Thanks, Kathy.
Something I didn't touch on too much is selling art online through a website, which is something that some artists really do like to do and are very successful doing on their own. So it's not really necessary to have a gallery if you're able to sell online on your own. That's completely okay too. So using a website like Squarespace, I think, is your best option if you want to really sell. My experience with WordPress is that it is very technical on the back end side, but Squarespace is a lot cleaner if selling is something important to you, and you can really set up your shop pretty easily. Another website which you could use is Shopify, but aesthetically Squarespace is more pleasing, I would say, if you want that clean portfolio-like look with your website. There's also other websites that offer possibilities to sell online. Yes, Wix also has the online option to sell your work too. Mm-hmm. But also, if you're just starting out and you just want to see if your work would sell online really well, there's websites like Saatchi Art, where you can create an artist portfolio, and they do take a percentage of the sale, but I think it's 20% that they take if your artwork sells. But it might be a good way to get started to see if there's demand. Or if you work in a digital way, you could also sell your prints in different formats, like on paper, on canvas, all through their website. They do take care of that too. So it might be something to look into.
I see Kathy is writing, but is there other questions?
Well, speaking of e-commerce, in my case, I guess it would make sense to print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are other websites that allow you to have that kind of plugin onto your website. That's something you would have to do more research on. But Saatchi Art, as an example, like they do have those features where if you upload your digital image on their website, you can select what methods it can be printed on.
Okay.
So you can select if you want it on canvas and paper, or if the paper must be glossy, like you can create those options on their website.
Right.
I think it's a good website to get started on if you just want to see how all of that could work for you, and then potentially create your own website for selling. It was very popular when I was a student. Everyone did go on Saatchi just to get things started.
Cool.
Kathy has her hand up.
I do. I can talk faster than I can type. So it's not really a question, but selling artwork on a website adds another huge dimension to the amount of work involved. And what I've found is that I do have a web page, and I found it really nice to segue into that world by just having an online presence, just as an information site to begin with. I think if I had have started trying to sell work and everything, I think I may have been a little overwhelmed at first. So selling your artwork on your website might even be a really good idea for another one of these sessions.
Yes, for sure.
Just a comment.
Yeah. I only mentioned the idea of selling, so like it sort of helps you create a bigger picture and greater goals if you would like. But really, starting off with that slideshow portfolio is the essential for all artists, because if you're applying for say you want to fly all the way down to Toronto this summer and participate in the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibition that happens every year, their application requires you submit a slideshow portfolio. And that is the case with most calls for exhibiting your work in a fair, in a group show, to have your opportunity at a solo show, all of those things. You really do need that slideshow first.
Yeah. No, that's I really enjoy this. It's sort of inspirational to participate in these workshops.
Well, if if there's no more questions, maybe Kathy, you had the last word, the last question. Because it's 7:30 now here in the Yukon. It's later on, and it's later in Toronto. It was very interesting. I told you guys she was good, eh, Jaspal?
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope to share like the things that I learned through my career, things that I wasn't taught also. So also just like even giving the bigger perspective of eventually selling your art. You have the tools now to start, but you know where they can lead you. So I think it's important to, as artists especially, to help visualize your goals. And I think that's how we learn best. So I hope I helped you visualize your path moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kathy, did you have one more questions, or your hand stayed stuck like that?
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you. I guess I better click it off. See, that's how technologically bad I am. Okay, so I'm going to click my hand off now.
Well, thank you so much. And the video will be, as soon that the video will be ready, I'll send you the link, the video of this session. And it will be available for 2 years, Garnet, on the government website.
Yes.
And what else? Is there something else?
Okay, well, that's a good deadline for getting all this stuff done. 2 years. It should be 2 weeks, but yeah. I'll try. Yeah.
Okay, for you, Jane, I will say it will be there for 2 weeks.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Yeah, work on your own timeline. Like I said, I'm not the person that posts every day on social media because that just works for me.
2 months.
Yeah, so work on your own timeline.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Is there something else, Garnet or Martina, that we should add?
No, I think that's great. Stay tuned for the recording, and thanks everyone for coming. Mary Ellen can send information about our next series of workshops, so we hope that you'll join some of them too.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Jaspal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.